feel that dating outside of my race or culture in any way affects my self-love and my root.
Whenever a police officer gets behind me and drives 60 miles an hour and won't move from behind me, it scares me.
You have nothing. You're so rich and wealthy that you can just buy everything and you're still not anything on the
When
inside.
is the right time for a woman to expect a man to put that money or spend that money on her?
Black men are so disconnected emotionally with women because they're taught not to connect with their feelings as a little boy.
I don't know if you guys have seen this on the news, but there was a Frenchman who was pulled over, stopped, frisked by 4 officers. He was sodomized, he was beaten, left in the hospital. This is not something that's just happening in America, guys. Could this be worldwide? What is the problem with law enforcement and black people?
The story is about a 22-year-old young black man named Theo, who's actually an activist in France. And so he saw police attacking another one. He spoke up. And so instead of police stopping their actions because they got caught, they instead took him around the corner, right? Arrested him and then anally raped him with a baton. When the chief of police got to him, how they addressed this subject was the hardest part. They said it was an accident. His pants accidentally fell down. Well, then how did the baton get up there? So this young man had a 4-inch anal lesion in his rectum. And police officers have yet to, and so it bothers me because you are a person of authority who is made to protect the citizens. You swore to protect the citizens, but because someone speaks up against how you are treating people, then you take them and for me, this was more than just police brutality. You took this young man's manhood by doing that, in my opinion. Because what can you do to a straight black man than to take their manhood, you take their voice?
Absolutely.
So that's how I feel about it.
And you were saying this just a few seconds ago, that the initial report, they said that it was an accident, right? And according to the French Penal Code, any act of sodomization, whether by surprise, whether by constraint, is considered rape.
Right.
It doesn't matter who's doing it or why it's being done. It's considered rape and punishable by 15 years in prison. So the court date is set for February 20th, if I'm not mistaken.
It was set. So this happened in February.
Mm-hmm.
So all the police, the 4 police, 3 were charged with assault and 1 was charged with sexual assault. So they were all charged. However, the fact that the police officer's chief was defending their actions as if this is something that's applaudable or, is not deplorable, and it's just, how can you back up people who were clearly wrong?
I'm interested in basically, I think, of course, this is relevant to what we're dealing with in America as far as race relations and police, but I think a lot of times African Americans are very limited in their scope of understanding that we're part of a global struggle here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think people have never even considered that race relations in France have been a long-standing issue. Albeit France was at various points a place where African Americans would leave to go to, Josephine Baker, because there was much more accepting and their race relations were different. But as far as especially like a lot of African immigrants, there's a huge race relation issue in France as well. And it would be very interesting for us in America to follow this case to see if these officers are charged, because we know in America, these officers get acquitted.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think we should follow to see what other countries are doing and how they're handling it.
Right.
Yeah, the overreach of on the street law enforcement as far as taking judgment into their own hands seems to be a global issue. But most police officers' jobs, I figure it should be administrative. Make an arrest. If you can't make an arrest, I don't see how sodomizing somebody can make it easier for you to arrest them. But if he did something wrong, take him to jail, bring him to court, write him a ticket. But trying to teach somebody a lesson, which is, again, I don't have all the facts because I wasn't there, but it kind of reads clear on paper what happened.
And if that is what happened, I just cannot even imagine as a person having to undergo something like that. And beyond his manhood, just the tragedy of being traumatized if you're stopped again for speeding, you know, what that would do to someone who's had to experience that. I can't imagine. No. Right. I mean, with black men being targets, again, already preyed on in America, now being international, it's scary.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that it does is, like you're saying, it scares you. Even if you're not the person that is in that situation at the moment, but seeing these things, seeing how black people are treated by the police officers scares other black people. I'm not speaking for the entire black population, but I'll speak for myself. Whenever a police officer gets behind me and drives 60 miles an hour and won't move from behind me, it scares me because I don't want to be that guy that's pulled over, thrown to the ground and shot. I don't want to be that person.
I don't want to
for
be
doing
that
what?
woman.
For doing what?
I think us being active in our communities here is important because America's race relations are so public. And all these other countries are watching us and taking a note from us and what we do. But there is a long-standing history of, in the white imagination of black men being these sexual fiends and scary, which is why there's this always a kind of a sexual tone whenever racism presents itself like this. When black men were lynched in America, many times they were also castrated. Because that's, and that has to do with what is in the white imagination, this over-sexualization of black people, and also inferiority about white men and black men. That's sexual. Because to dominate someone in a sexual act means that there's this gross sexual inferiority in the white imagination as well. And we have to address white America, white globally, the issue of whites against blacks. They need to address that feeling of white sexual inferiority and how that plays with racism.
And just the inferiority, period. How we're viewed as a people. Because to me, I always preach to the black men in my lives. Like, that must be, I just wish that it would come a time where we would really understand how powerful we must be as a people when your color intimidates someone. Like, if we were to just really tap into the kings that we are, it would be amazing to see the growth from not just a physical perspective, but a mental perspective. Like, you're a threat because of your skin. Now, if you begin to capitalize on that and become leaders, real leaders, oh my God, unstoppable.
I agree.
Absolutely. Now, the French, the interior minister, I apologize, Bruno Leroux, is actually working to fix this, and his plan for this is to put body cameras. We've seen that here in America. Put body cameras on officers that are patrolling sensitive areas. Now, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we have to go to the extent of putting cameras on people that are there to protect us.
Exactly, who we should be trusting.
Absolutely.
My thing is, though, the police officers who did this denied their act completely. And the thing is, like, how can you not take accountability for the sick perversion that you've caused on someone else? How can you not take accountability for your actions and your hate inside of yourself? Are you really that disconnected and in denial with yourself that you can brutalize someone and not see them as a human being and then continue to live your life as if you're scot-free?
Because they're protected.
Absolutely.
They live under the umbrella of protection. So them doing whatever they want has become a trend. It's the norm.
Absolutely. And that is something, like you were saying earlier, Candace, that is something that we need to change here, starting in America. We need to go out as black people. We need to gather. We need to get together. We need to orchestrate some sort of protest, a peaceful protest, a demonstration of we are not going to stand for this any longer. We are not going to stand for being abused. We are not going to stand for being racially profiled and being trampled over.
I think a final comment, I think James Baldwin's movie, I'm Not Your Negro, James Baldwin had a very interesting quote that said, white people created the Negro. And the question that white people need to ask is, why did you create that? Why did you create the Negro? This is a false picture that they have of what black people are. And it has nothing to do with us. It's a projection. And why did they create that? And I think the issue really is for them. We know who we are. They don't. And they are running from something they
Absolutely.
created that doesn't exist. And they need to
Right.
deal with why they do that.
Fearing
Absolutely.
the unknown.
Absolutely. Well, I know this has been a very sensitive subject, but I thank you all for tuning in at Black Coffee. Get yourself a cup.